Okay, folks, I think we're ready to get going here. Welcome. And I want to start off by just taking a quick little survey. So, if you're excited to be here to hear a candidate who is running for Secretary of Agriculture, give me one big clap. If you think having access to clean water is a human right, give me two big claps. If you are ready to fight to protect our natural resources, give me three big claps. Excellent. Well, you guys, you're on time, you're on rhythm. I think we got an easy day.
Organized.
So I'd love to just welcome you. My name is Sheree Ortiz from Des Moines. I'm a retired school teacher. And I'm board president of Iowa CCI Action. I've been a member for about 14 years. Just as a quick housekeeping measure, so you all know where the bathroom is. It's right around this corner, okay? So if you need a bathroom break, we salute you. I want to just kind of go over a little bit about who CCI Action is and what we're about. And CCI Action is actually a statewide grassroots community organization. We got our start in 2011 as a sister organization to Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement, which has been around since 1975. How many of you attended our 50th anniversary?
Woo!
Illinois, yeah, it was a big deal. So we have thousands of dues-paying members in both rural and urban areas, and we work with everyday people on issues they care about, issues that relate to economic justice, environmental justice, and racial justice, and we do work in elections to change business as usual politics, which I'm sure you're all sick of. And we fight the corrosive influence of big money and special interests.
That's right.
We're going to have a podium, but obviously we won't. We believe that change only comes from the ground up. We are experts in our own experiences, and we know the solutions to the problems that we face. We are committed to electing leaders who will work with us to make life better for a whole lot more people.
That's right.
Also, we believe that people directly impacted by an issue need to be directly involved in leading those campaigns forward to counteract the injustice. You bet. You bet. We get things done by being strategic, action-oriented, and persistent. We don't turn around. We don't back down.
That's right.
We firmly believe we always have something to learn from each other and from our allies. We believe we are all in this together because what? We all do better when we all do better. And the reasons we work hard for justice and democracy, and that means fighting for environmental justice, is because it brings us joy, hope, and a sense of community.
Yeah.
Thank you, my worthy servant.
Hey,
Not really. She leads me. Anyway, I want to walk through the agenda, so I want you just to, you have an agenda, you should have it there, should have been on your seat.
What does it look like?
What does it look like? Hold it up, Hugh.
Just like this. It was on your chair, right?
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Hugh. You know, we kind of do this as a team, can you tell?
Heck yeah.
So, in that agenda, you'll be able to kind of follow what's going to be happening, sort of step by step. Anybody without an agenda, just raise your hand, and our floor managers can get it to you. And we have a first-class floor manager on the floor. I always embarrass Katie because I had her as a student in physical education. She was the best floor manager I ever had. She could organize 200 kids on a gymnasium floor. And I actually brought her a whistle for Birdie Middle School. Anyway, I'm getting a little off. Just a little. So, if you take a look at it, we're doing our grounding as we speak, and as soon as we're done, we'll introduce Chris and get started. So we're going to kind of lay out the format. Chris will will have 3 minutes to answer each question, and our timekeeper is there. Point to the timekeeper.
Hello.
And we'll let Chris know as time winds down. Once that 3 minutes is up, we will ring a bell. Ring that bell. And we will move on to the next question. We will have time after that to take audience questions. Each of you should have gotten an index card on your chair as well as hold-up card. If you didn't, please raise your hand and we'll get you one. We'll aim to get through as many audience questions as we can, but if we're not able to get to yours, Chris will be sticking around for a little bit after the town hall, or we can work on getting an answer for you. So don't leave here if you have a question that you would like to. Yes.
And how should people do it? Just hold their index card in the air, and one of us will come around and get it.
Okay. So hold it in the air, and we have 4 people that will come and get them. You don't have to leave your seat. So finally, we'll wrap up some ways for you to get involved in our work to protect our water. So, be sure to stick around. And now I'm going to hand it off to Sydney.
Hi everyone, I'm Sydney Landstrom. I'm a member of CCI Action. I'm excited for our conversation here today with Chris Jones. But before we get started, I'm going to introduce the role of Secretary of Agriculture so we all know what it is we are considering him for elected office. And I'm also going to introduce a framework that we at CCI use when considering candidates up and down the ballot and what we use to consider when we work with our elected officials. The Secretary of Agriculture has a wide swath of responsibilities as it pertains to the health and welfare of our land and livestock. They promote and implement conservation practices with Iowa farmers. They are responsible for regulation of meat production, commercial feed and fertilizer, pesticide application, grain warehouses, egg handling, and dairy production. They regulate fair pricing in fuels, groceries, and crops. The Secretary of Agriculture oversees livestock welfare, especially as it pertains to communicable diseases and the eradication and containment of such diseases. They also supervise the state climatologist who disseminates weather information. Now, taking a step back, as we consider candidates up and down the ballot when working with elected officials, it is important to recognize the difference between responsibility, authority, and influence. Responsibility is what I just laid out. It's the scope of a position of an elected official under Iowa law. Authority pertains to what an elected official's power to make certain decisions. The Secretary of Agriculture will make hiring and firing decisions in their department. They also determine how the department functions under Iowa code. Finally, and most broadly, is influence. The influence of an elected official pertains to who or what they can sway based on who and what, based on who they know and who they work with. When we consider who a candidate or the Secretary of Agriculture knows, who they work with, we can better understand how we can move them to make the decisions that are best for our land, our water, and our people. With that information and that framework in place, I'm excited to introduce Chris Jones, a Democratic candidate for Secretary of Agriculture, and our next members of CCI to present questions to Chris, Berlene, and Barney.
Woohoo!
Good afternoon, Mr. Jones. Thank you for being here and giving us this important opportunity to interact with you and share our concerns and questions. And this will be a long question. And if there's some anxiety or anger in my voice, it's a sign of the times. My name is Berlene Wolbeater. My husband and I have 46 years of shared life on our family farm in Tama County. A small farm by today's standards, but one with hard work, mostly from my husband, that has provided us with a modest, comfortable life, and we don't ask for more. I do wonder though, can a young married couple expect the same chance to make a living and life on a farm today, starting out the way we did? Is that model even a vision or goal for agriculture production in Iowa today? Through our years, we've witnessed much change in farm country. We know what was and what is today. Some good change and much that's questionable. Last December, we attended an appreciation dinner hosted by our local cooperative, local being relative, since this one cooperative now operates out of 19 locations in the state. And at the dinner, they were proud to announce more buyouts. They sell up to 1 million tons of feed a year. One company with more price control as they buy out the competition. This is the cooperative that buys our grain. We raise corn and soybeans. We use fertilizer. A fertilizer plant in Weaver, Iowa was recently bought out by a competitor. This plant was initially constructed with the help of our tax dollars under Terry Branstad, with the promise of creating healthy competition. And this takeover, the new owners now promise it was done for the benefit of their customers. How is this a benefit? Less competition on the input side means higher prices for the farmer, plus less income from loss of competition on the output end, leaving farmers squeezed in the middle. And government assistance just means passing through dollars to corporations. We have a cow-calf operation. The U.S. beef industry is largely controlled by 4 massive meatpacking corporations. Consumers are currently paying high prices for beef, and while we are getting a good price for cattle right now, this hasn't been the trend for recent years. No matter the year, those meatpacking corporations seem to do well all the time. Given the amount of control they have, they can determine next what happens to the prices we get as producers and the customers pay. With getting bigger is always the promise of getting better, more efficient. And I truly have learned to hate that word efficiency. But I ask, better for whom? While big corporations merge and grow, family farmers are experiencing bankruptcy in numbers starting to remind us of the devastation of the 80s farm crisis. 71 bankruptcies in the Midwest in 2024, a 69% increase for the year. A story of farmers getting paid less, consumers paying more in the grocery store. Who is this economy working for? Is there still a place for a family to try and make a living? A family who is not consumed with the desire to acquire more and more at the expense of their neighbor's health and well-being. This is a crisis from my point of view. A crisis not of necessity, but one planned or allowed to grow unchecked. A crisis with few winners and many losers. As candidate for Secretary of Agriculture, how would you address or describe what you see? Do we have a crisis, and how would you address what we see?
So I don't think we have a crisis. I think we have a failure. We're brought beyond the crisis state. We have a failure of our systems here such that, the small operations have a trouble existing. And so there's forces coming at the smaller operations from every angle. And the establishment here in Iowa, I think, likes using farmers like this as a prop, and without really, trying to imagine some policies that will help them. And so we have a high input system here with corn and soy, right? Farmers need to buy a lot of stuff here. And so as a consequence, farmers are vulnerable to these big corporate agribusinesses that sell the stuff. Mm-hmm. And when you got to buy a lot of stuff, a lot of that stuff gets in the water, and the water ends up polluted.
Right.
And so the answer here, I think, is to get farmers off this high input system. That's just the way to go. And so we hear this talk about the debt treadmill and these other things. Well, let's make a system where farmers don't have to borrow so much money in the first place. And so that's getting into a system where there's fewer inputs. That means a diversity of crops. We need something other than corn and soy. We need crops like oats, for example, where the input costs are lower. To grow oats, you need to know that you have a market. And so that's where government comes in. It's fair to ask government to help develop markets for alternative crops. You just don't wake up one morning and decide you're going to grow oats or you're going to grow apples or whatever. You need policy that helps you do that. And so I think it's correct for government to figure out these transition paths for farmers, roadmaps, that they can follow to get to more economically and environmentally sustainable systems. And so we look at ethanol, for example. Look at the infrastructure we helped build for ethanol, and look at the markets the taxpayer helped build for ethanol. We ought to be able to do that for alternative crops, so farmers can get into these more sustainable systems, and small farmers can exist more robustly by selling higher value crops than corn and soy.